Nerd on the Podcast is proudly partnered with Apogee Electronics and Odyssey Headphones, leaders in the field of audio.
Like I said, evil is about perspective, right?
Exactly.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nerd On, the podcast you didn't need, but you deserve, and where all levels of nerd are welcome. Today is a special episode, very special episode. We have a guest, and I don't know, a little bit of background information. We got contacted by Crunchyroll to be on the show, and it's pretty fantastic. We have Miles. Miles is joining us today we're going to learn about Miles, and we're also going to, discuss something that he is nerdy about. There's, spoiler alert, there will be a lot of conversation about anime. So fun stuff.
So much anime.
Before we get into the show, let us introduce the hosts. I am Josh.
I am Tom.
I'm Caitlin.
And this episode is brought to you in part by the members of the Nerd On Nation that is powered by Patreon.
Patreon.
As a member of the Nerd On Nation, you do get fun perks, like you get bonus episodes that nobody else hears but you. And you get early access to all of our episodes. You get discounts on merch. You get access to special channels in our Discord server. They're just for you to talk with other Nerd On Nation members, talk with us, hosts of our other shows that are part of the Nerd On family, all that good stuff. But check that out. nerdon.io/Patreon and our Discord. Patreon.
I can't not do it, Josh.
I know. But there's
baked into my personality.
But there's like this couple second delay where it's like, on Patreon.
So I call it disorder, but sure.
It's like Timmy and Tommy on Animal Crossing.
But yeah, you can join our Discord, which is nerdon.io/Discord. And yeah, come join the conversation. There's lots of fun stuff that's going on over there. We talk about everything from anime to food porn to tech stuff to video. It's across the gamut. It's a really cool community. Yes, gardening. It's so good. But then also huge shout out to our partners, Apogee, who have equipped us all of us hosts, with the Hype Mic. It is the ultimate podcasting microphone. It's a wonderful microphone, and I cannot recommend it enough, especially at these times during quarantine. Even people that are looking to get into podcasting, or you're a streamer, any content that needs audio, you need a microphone. I really suggest this microphone. As an audio engineer, as a podcaster, I love it. It's a dope microphone. And then our friends over at Odyssey Headphones, as we have stated before, they taste like butter. They sound like butter. They are wonderful.
They sound like butter for your ears.
They are wonderful. They're super comfortable. They sound great. Another
and we
product
wear them for hours on end.
Yes, exactly. We wear them all day when we record, and you can barely feel them. And shout out to our co-host Ollie, who has very sensitive ears.
Because it feels like butter.
It feels like butter too.
Delightful.
It's so delightful. But that is the housekeeping. Let us get into the episode.
Let's get on with the show, baby. So let's hear from Miles. We did all that housekeeping. So Miles Thomas. I love your last name. It's like my first name.
Oh yeah, it is.
What?
Wow.
To introduce you to our audience, let's start out with like the basic question, maybe one that you get asked all the time. What is your role with Crunchyroll?
Well, I am technically the director of social media and editorial programming. You could also just say community marketing. So when I go to Japan, they say community marketing, because that's something that actually sounds like a real job, I guess.
Like a high role.
It's very official.
It is.
And I mean, but I actually like community marketing because it speaks to what I think I do. Because when you say social media editor, and the worst part is I'm the one who came up with that job title, and now I'm but community marketing represents I am my team is the one that tries to connect fans with the company. So we are the bridge between the audience and, like our Japan office, our offices in like Europe and all over the world. Like our team is the one that tries to say, hey, people love this anime. We should do something more with it. Or, hey, we love this anime. Let's try and spread it with the world, share it with the world, spread it as far as possible, build up a community, build up an audience. And so it's kind of like the fun parts of marketing.
Yeah.
Where instead of just like doing some like I am a numbers guy, like that's kind of my background, but like there are other teams that deal with like the like programmatic marketing that's like finding out the best ad rates on every platform, like just
statistical and algorithm and
And I love that stuff. Don't get me wrong, but I'm really excited as like a lifelong anime fan that my job is about like, well, how does it make people feel?
That's awesome.
You're the voice of the community.
Make stuff? Try to be. Try really hard.
Working with the community.
Try to represent them.
To try to represent them as accurately as possible. More of that, because like social media sounds very like I do algorithm stuff. Like that's very
Nothing
impersonal.
wrong with that, but
nothing wrong with that.
And the advantage is like because I am a wonk at heart. Like the algorithm stuff means that like it's so much fun. Like within like I look at the top 100 American companies and like my social media team kicks all of their asses. Like and just on a regular basis. And it's like, yes, one, way more people like anime than you think. But number two, because we have this like wonkiness at our hearts, even though we're just doing like what we feel in the moment and make like stupid mistakes because we're just like anime fans too.
Wait, you're human?
We also have
Oh no.
Oh boy.
Whoa. We're gonna need to end this.
Like
this is
But we're able to play the algorithm and like beat the competition of like, and our competition's not anime. Our competition's everything that's not anime, right?
Yeah.
Like the rising tide of anime lifts all anime. So I like it when anime wins on social media. So to see like our brand be like the tippity top of so many different like win awards and stuff. Like we won the social media team last year for DigiDay, which is like my favorite magazine to read on the wonky side of things. So like,
what is a wonk? I must be super uncultured.
No, wonk is like a political term. So a wonk is someone who gets really into like the numbers, or the policies. So it doesn't care about like the slogans, but cares about like, all right, but tell me more about how Elizabeth Warren's bill that did like that's like.
Got it.
So when I say wonky, I mean like, like I can literally go on for 10,000 words about how the Facebook algorithm works in regards to the single post. And it's also, I can explain why, mathematically, why you see the stuff that on Facebook that you hate watch the most. So like that one friend from high school who you like never interact with, you never like their posts. Facebook can like, there are, algorithms that determine like where your eyes are looking on the screen. And when you're scrolling through, when you linger on something, Facebook's like, they don't like to admit that they're into this, but they're into this. And so Facebook will serve you their stuff more, for example. Like, and so like that kind of stuff like informs how we go about anime. And so this is what I mean. I'm getting a little in the weeds because
that's totally
I care about
it's fascinating.
But like at the same time, like how do I exploit my knowledge of this and my team's knowledge of this for the corrupt cause of making anime more popular?
So that's what
powers of evil for good.
Is that corrupt? Because I feel like the world is better with more anime in it.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone thinks that they're always in the right? I think that's true. I think I'm in the right.
True villains.
I think you're in the right too. So
I mean that kind of makes sense with the other job title that you said that you don't like as much, like the long one, editorial programmer. So I mean, it's like you're looking at all of these numbers and you're making informed decisions from that. And for the programming, whether it's posts, whether it's, hey, let's do a blog about this. Let's do a video segment about this because the numbers show this will be successful. Is that kind of like, am I understanding that kind of correctly?
You are nailing it. Absolutely. And so like,
gold star for Josh.
the editorial programming part of that is like the on-site experience. So when people go to Crunchyroll.com or go to the app, like what do they see first? And so like literally my job is to maximize delighting fans. And there's 5,000 things. Like our company has a million things. Like our company is just like,
there's a lot.
We've got our expo, Virtual Control Expo's coming up in just a couple months here. Like we've got our e-commerce platform. We do a bunch of licensed merchandise. Like we have all these partnerships and relationships. And so like trying to balance all that with finding a way to make people delighted when they're experiencing all those things to the most. Like, and a lot of these things are inherently delightful. Like if you see a cute Android, you're going to want to click on it.
Yeah.
So like, like it's like, how can we make people more happy is how we start every day on my team. And so like, I don't know.
It's a good North Star.
I like that.
Positivity is infectious. And I feel like the anime world is filled with that. It's just like relentless positivity. So
and then you have
I can only imagine how, okay. All right. A hard left turn on me, Josh. Thanks.
I mean, I think he's still right. Anyways, but no, I mean, like, no, that's a really cool thing because it is that intersection between, user experience, but also, enhancing your platform or the tools that you're using, so you can always enhance the user experience. It's very user audience focused, where a lot of people tend to be very numbers focused. It's like, how do we make these numbers better, but how do we make sure that we're engaging with the audience more and more? So it's a really nice, typically it's a vicious circle, but this sounds like a very like loving circle. So
it helps. Look, at other companies, you don't have a team like mine. Audience development is the larger team I work for. Like developing an audience is not a priority of most companies. They have just marketing that serves marketing purposes.
Right.
And product teams. And so the fact that I've gotten the keys to a lot of things that normally would be like on an acquisition marketing basis or on a product basis is testament to the fact that the company cares about the community, like, and recognizes like, hey, this is how we existed in the first place. Crunchyroll would not exist without like a strong community. So like, I am very grateful that they've let me stay at the company for so long and hire a team up.
Well, and that just proves that like that the community wants you to keep representing their voice. Like that what more could be said that like that's kind of like a mutual trust thing. It's like, I'm having a good experience because this person is here. Like that's why I am in a like better place because of this person. So that's like, that's kind of a reassurance for you that like my job still exists because people trust me and find that reassuring.
It's also as a like customer facing, like from my side of things, as somebody who watches the product, it's kind of a breath of fresh air to know that this company, well, it actually cares about what what I'm intaking, and based on like what I like, and caring enough to, care about me and how
I just thought of now, if you go to the webpage, I'm just like, Miles thought about you. It's like, that's
yeah.
Like, all right. Now,
everybody
now I have a face and voice
watching right now. Go to Crunchyroll.com. Miles was
thinking.
It's me. It's
on the flip side of that, though, it means that every negative thing that someone says about the company or any decision that anyone on any team makes, not just mine.
Yeah.
My team's the one who has to see that, pass that along, make reports on that, and we internalize it a little too much because we care a little too much.
Yeah. So don't hurt Miles's feelings.
No,
that's what we're saying.
I used to say so much stupid stuff on like Twitter. Like I just would get in fight with people who made dumb arguments about like piracy. And like, I think that there's a time and place for like everything. And like, I was never dogmatic about anything, but people like, whatever. I was stupid and engaged poorly. And like almost everyone I engage with poorly is now banned from Twitter, which is a little bit of validation that maybe like they were just kind of trolls. But at the same time, I was stupid. Like this like 2015, 2016 time era. And there used to be like 4chan threads about me. And I'm like, oh my God, these people would literally go about saying, oh, Crunchyroll is so stupid with this Miles guy. And then 5 minutes later, I'll see, oh, Crunchyroll did this really cool thing. Why do they still have that Miles guy around though? That was actually me.
Well, and one of the things that like time gives you too is like understanding of how better to have discussion. I mean, this podcast's been running for almost 3 years now, and like all of us have learned how to have like civil discourse about things and disagree on things and get different perspectives. And that's, that's something that comes with time too. So
I've always known.
I mean, I'm glad that you can say something like I discussed poorly.
But-
Like
Yeah.
I wasn't doing things the way I should have been, but now you know how.
Well,
I
yeah.
will also be a little devil's advocate though. If 4chan
here you
Plus
come.
coming out though, coming after you, that means you're doing some right. You know what I mean? I mean, but like, hey, that's the past. You're grown from that. It's changed you. It's made you to who you are now.
I just do want to say this comes from the member of our team who has been voted most likely to be on a very bad channel or in a very bad magazine. So I'm just
That's
saying.
I'm TMZ. I'm in jail. I'm in prison. I'm that guy. Hype it up. That's me. I'm the one. I'm the lowest form. Like, if you're worse than me, then you're pretty bad. You know what I mean? But I try to be pretty good about it.
Oh, Tom.
But let's talk a little bit about like what like how you came across Crunchyroll. So I mean, like, have you been like, were you an avid user of it, and then all of a sudden like you got into working with other community-based companies and then got into Crunchyroll? Or how'd that story go?
So, like all great anime personalities, I started off studying agriculture.
Oh wow, yeah, no, that makes sense.
So I went to UC Davis and I studied
Aggies.
agricultural economics. Yeah, go Ags.
I was a
very
Hornet.
proud of my
Sorry,
school.
Sac State.
Very nice, all the same.
Okay.
y'all are close cousins. We love y'all.
Yeah.
Went to a lot of good parties at Sac State folks.
I
Anyway,
went to a lot of good Davis parties.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
Love picnic day. Miss picnic day this year.
Oh, picnic day was fun. But anyways, so Davis.
Davis, as Tom, you probably know, is in the middle of nowhere. There's
It is.
very little to do.
It's kind of fun. It's very fun.
I loved anime always since I was since I knew before I knew what anime was. I loved anime, and I had always been in like anime groups, anime clubs. Went to my local anime convention from the time my parents would let me.
Mhm.
And so when I went to Davis, first thing I did was join the anime club. It was a small club, like as you would expect an anime club to be. But then I realized, just talking even my freshman year to people in my dorm, that like every other room had someone who liked anime, who watched anime. And I'm like, hey, why don't you come to the anime club with me? And they're like, anime club? Why would I go to the anime club? Like, there was this like perception of it. And I'm like, well, no, if you look, and like I realized by the end of my freshman year, if you look at the typical person at UC Davis, there's a pretty good chance that they like anime and they would love to have a community in which to gather around anime, but they go to the anime club or see it or just even think about it and they're like, I don't want to go to the
There's a
anime.
weird stigma for some reason.
Yeah.
And so by my junior year, I became the president of the anime club.
Nice.
And I just said, like, we're throwing everything out. We're going to treat it like a frat. There's no point having an anime club in this day and age, because the whole point of Davis Anime Club back when it was founded in 1993 was for access. It was, you would bring your VHS player and daisy chain it together
Back
to
in the
copy whatever
day.
was, like that was like the point of Anime Club. You could not, 1993, you couldn't watch anime on TV, let alone have a smartphone in your pocket and watch any one of like thousands of anime with a,
It was-
legally.
Very hard. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to have someone that had a VHS that's like, oh man, I got this from someone. It's like, where'd you get it? I can't tell you.
I can't tell
Black
you.
market.
It's so weird. It was
I've
like,
been
I
trusted
remember
with information.
I watched Serial Experiments Lane on a VHS. I'm like, I don't know where it came from.
There
I
you
don't know
go.
where it came from though.
And like, if it's for access, like that's why you go to the anime club. You go to watch. You don't go for like community. You have a community around it, but it's not like that's the primary purpose of the club. And so all of a sudden, within 1 year, we were one of the biggest clubs on campus. We were the biggest anime club in the country. We started our own anime convention. By the time I graduated, we controlled a quarter of the student senate.
I like how you use the word control. Like, it just
We
sounds
are
like
the Senate.
we control the Senate.
Wow.
Like I said, evil is about perspective, right?
Exactly. There it is.
Okay, Palpatine, whatever.
Anime invasion.
Do it.
Uh-huh.
Do it. Give in to the dark side.
That's awesome.
And Crunchyroll is a sponsor of the anime convention and came to visit that second year we did it. And I've been in touch with Crunchyroll ever since. So I spent a couple of years. I worked at a tomato processing plant. I was a financial analyst at another manufacturing plant. I just didn't really like my work all that much. And so at that second job out of school, like I started like being a booth babe for Crunchyroll every once in a while.
Nice.
I can see
Just
that.
like they'd find me around the country because like they're like, Miles, you can sell Crunchyroll subscriptions. People don't like Crunchyroll is still a lot newer then, and we had to tell people, hey, this is what this service is. And I was quite good at that because I had gone in just the last couple of years from like, and it also had helped that Crunchyroll's availability had increased hugely in that period. Went from pirating 100% to not pirating any of my media because like I had no need to anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
there was a
100%
legal way to do it, and I didn't have to just wait till the DVDs came out 5 years later. Like I could just support it legally day one,
Right
and
now.
so it changed everything. And so I was trying to share that change and share my excitement for that change. And then a couple of years later, like they're like, "Do you want to just do this full time?" And I said,
Yes.
"Yeah." And
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. It's basically it's never been like my plan or my dream job, but it is both of those things now.
Yeah.
Sounds a
And,
lot like the marquee topic that we're going to talk about later on in the episode. Where you find your passion and you just realize who you are. But that's awesome. That's it's really cool that it came around to
I
that.
saw that face. It's like, yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Huh?
Tom's
Hey,
up
man.
there. Tom knows where I'm coming from.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm stepping in. I don't know.
So,
But, yeah.
what does a day in the life of Miles Thomas at Crunchyroll look like?
I hate this question. I don't. I'm just in meetings for like 6-7 hours a day, and so like I just wake up. I have a newborn. My son Bennett is 5 months old.
Oh, congrats!
Years
Oh,
ago.
congrats.
I'm in the baby room because he's out playing in the living room where I was originally planning on recording.
Oh, well.
and being very
He kicked you
vocal,
out.
and he's very. So he wakes up early. So I wake up early. I like to wake up early anyway. So that means I get a couple hours of actually responding to emails and doing work before the workday starts. And like my team has grown quite large over the last few years. We put out a bunch of news articles every day. We run hundreds of social media pages. Like we do big campaigns. We there's not like, I don't know what I do anymore, but I know what my team does, and my team has gotten better as I've gotten better at handling my own neuroticisms while working from home. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah, been big shift.
gotten a little better at that, but it's still, that's still weird. At least I get to spend, like, I miss my team dearly. I miss like that in-office environment. And so like, you ask me what a typical day is. My typical day is, because my wife's work remote job is a little more demanding on her being like typing during the middle of the day than mine, because I'm in so many meetings. It means that 4 hours a day, I'm like got my little boy on my lap and I'm just playing with him while muted in a meeting.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
That doesn't sound too bad. Doesn't sound too bad.
I think that question would be different 3 months prior to now.
Oh yeah, and I would not be needing to fix it with so much work after like 10 o'clock when the baby's.
Oh yeah,
no.
yeah. There's
Yeah, that's there are side effects of life the way it is now.
Look, I just like having the flexibility. And you can maybe hear him in the background now, but I just like having the flexibility, and I'm like not missing any of his firsts. Like,
Yeah.
I am not,
Yeah.
I cannot, I don't want to be ungrateful, because I'm really just gratified to spend so much time with my little guy at these like pivotal moments that I thought I was going to have to miss because I am an adult and have to work. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of cool. Everything's hard right now, but that silver lining is pretty damn spectacular.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's kind of like the way to kind of turn the situations of like, yeah, we're all kind of stuck at home and it's very, not great circumstances. But the great thing is like, this does give a lot of people to have chances to connect and get closer within their, family. So like, yeah, it's a wonderful
strange
experience I can only
irony
imagine.
that there's distance, but it's also like during this time I have gotten to connect with a lot more people. Like even my neighbors who I didn't really talk to very much were talking more. Or like friends from high school, we've done like the Zoom meetings where we're just catching up, and it's like one of them I hadn't seen in like 10 years. And it's like, it's strange that there is this disconnect, but there's also more connection. Because I think also the world is realizing how much digital space we have available to us. Like this right now, we're still able to create a podcast remotely, and we're connecting, and it's just a very weird catch-22 that you're like.
And another little silver lining, just because we're going to be talking about anime, is like the more time at home is also that all of us have a backlog of things we've been wanting to watch, wanting to play, wanting to like sit down and finally get through. And this time has been like the ultimate ability to just like
justification.
Get through every show, every season you wanted to see, every movie you wanted to see. Like it's all happening all at once. So there's as much bad as there's good too. So I think it's balanced.
What's the best thing you've binged so far then, Caitlin? During this whole pandemic.
I mean,
flip the script.
Ooh. Honestly, just and it's gonna feel super biased.
I knew it.
Because we're talking about it. Sound Euphonium.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not okay, but I have to preface with I also just got through watching Peaky Blinders, and that was really, really good. But I really like that a lot. But like I fell off the anime
something completely different
for a little while. I know, very Peaky Blinders Sound Euphonium. Like it's
like if you were like
if
somebody were like, well, what do you want to watch next? Something completely different. Peaky Blinders.
Yeah. But no, it's kind of one of those things where like you kind of forget how much you love something until you've been away for a long time, and then you come back to it. And I was always very, very picky with my anime. Like I needed it to have like a good arc, and like the characters needed to be really fleshed out, and they needed to be like striving towards something, but like not like a surface level, like, ho hum slice of life. Not that I don't enjoy those. But this kind of had all of those things in it that I had been missing. Like we'll talk about it, but like some of the Sound Euphonium, I'm just going to give a brief synopsis very quick. It's about the high school band, basically, and your journey as a musician through there, and a coming of age story. And some of the musicians like kind of were doing things, but they were doing them very robotically, and there was no soul in it. And then like coming back to anime and kind of like finding my soul again, it was just like the perfect thing that I needed right now. So Sound Euphonium was my answer. It feels super biased. I swear it's not. It's just
it
like
100% sounds biased.
Sure. Yeah, Caitlin.
Check out
perfect answer.
Oh my god. Okay, guys, cut it out. I like other stuff too.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
I do have a question, just because you were talking about binging and stuff like that. So I started binging some stuff on HBO Max. And HBO Max has now that the launch was to include Crunchyroll stuff. So from that perspective, I want to get like a little bit of insight from you. Like, what's that kind of been like? Like working with another company like that.
Well, we are part of Warner Media. So Crunchyroll is a Warner Media company, which is cool because that means I get to like shoot the shit with like the person who runs the Wonder Woman account, or like the person who runs the Full Frontal account.
You're like hitting every button for Tom right now.
You said the right words.
Yep.
Like Detective Pikachu is in like the family, like I got to, there was this big Scoob like social media initiative that I just got the report for and got to talk to the people who like ran the initiative. I'm like, so like I don't know, like working with Scooby-Doo is cool. I don't know. That's
Hanna-Barbera.
That's kind of a cool sentence. Working with Scooby-Doo.
Before HBO Max had launched, were you working with Warner people before a lot?
Yeah, but it definitely heightened it and made it so that more meetings. From my perspective.
6 hours versus 4.
But I love the fact that Crunchyroll is on HBO Max, because there is not that back in the day. Can I make a quick tangent?
This is not
please. When the pyramids are still young.
in the day, there were only a couple places where you could watch anime, and it kind of brought the entire anime community together. And so we all had a shared collective experience of how we watched anime. And by the mid-aughts, that kind of died off around the same time it actually happened, because people were starting to watch anime on the internet, and it was, dissociate, like it was, people would watch it in a million different places. And all of a sudden, instead of just 3 or 4 shows getting localized a year, it was like 30 or 40, and now it's like 150, 200. And so when everyone was watching the same stuff, it like had, and being an anime fan meant you liked, honestly, it meant you liked certain genres 20 years ago. It meant you liked certain aesthetics. And now being an anime fan just means you like storytelling from a different part of the world with a different, like with some different sensibilities, but it doesn't, like, anime is a medium, not a genre. And so it's like, it doesn't mean much to be an anime fan.
It's a medium
on it, like on some level, but on another level, it means a lot culturally. So anyway, this is all to say, HBO Max is something that is already in tens of millions of households or something like that, I think, because it's like
it's a lot.
has to be.
The PR department can follow up with me about the actual number later. But there are so many people watching HBO, and now you're just going to be able to accidentally run into anime a little bit more often. And like, I just watched Tales from Earthsea last night. I just watched Tales from Earthsea last night, which is not Crunchyroll, but like the fact that all the Ghibli stuff is there makes it a really easy transition to like, hey, start off with the Ghibli stuff, but then, come over and watch like Eizouken on Crunchyroll. And then you're like, oh, I like this anime stuff. And then they're like, Crunchyroll, what's that? And then all of a sudden you're brought into this bigger world. So like having anime, and then like, like it there's also something to do with marketing where like I can also like, I see anime on big platforms sometimes, and that's great. And I'm glad it's there because that means that it's accessible. But if no one's spending a lot of time very thoughtfully, lovingly, and strategically marketing those anime, it doesn't matter how big of a platform you're on, because like they all have thousands of shows. But if there are shows that are on HBO Max that like my team is marketing the hell out of just in general, just to get people to like the show in general, then like it means it's a lot more likely that someone's like, oh, hey, I see this cool like thing on Twitter. Oh, it's on HBO Max. I'm going to watch it. Oh, what's Crunchyroll? And then like, that's really good.
It's a good entry point.
And I found anime in my teens. And so like, for me, it was like the perfect, I mean, I've been watching it since I was a kid, but like, it was more like I started like really falling in love with it. And so like, to me, I think it's the perfect, like when we're talking about like networks and streaming services, like you think about all the, age groups. So it's like, do we have the kids programming? And I think that's a perfect time for teens to get into anime, because it starts getting to the adult content. It starts letting them know like, hey, there's real world consequences. You're not just like, what color is this? It's more like, what are the lessons being taught? What are, like, what are the characters going through and what are their journeys? And then that later on brings you to like the TV shows that deal with like drugs and murder. And so it's like, okay, now this is real adult stuff. So I thought that was so cool. I'm like, oh, HBO Max, like it has everything that I wanted. And I was like, oh, Crunchyroll. And like, for me, like Crunchyroll, I've always had this like lingering like experience with. And then all of a sudden, like when it's brought more into the foreground, I was like, oh, well, now I have to be able to use it because it's more accessible to me. And so I talk about accessibility, which is, the point of it all. So, does anyone have any other questions before we get into the show, the show?
The meat and potatoes.
Okay. So yeah, half of this show will now divert into talking about sound euphonium, or I'm an American English speaker, hibike euphonium, right?
Yep,
I'm assuming that's right. So yeah, that was the show that we were talking. Like typically when we get any guests on the show, we want to get a chance to talk about something that you may or may not have talked about before. Just you get asked a lot about your role in Crunchyroll, but what about anime that you like? So we're doing sound euphonium, which we watched in preparation for this. So Miles, I want to hear from you how you got into sound euphonium or your journey with it. Just a little bit of your initial reactions with it too.
Well, it all starts back in 2008.
Do it.
Actually,
go all the way back.
I watched Clannad and Clannad After Story and cried like a baby. And I was very young and didn't know better. And don't revisit it if you watched it back in the day. because it will not hold up. I promise. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
Facts.
KyoAni instantly became my favorite animation studio from watching that. And, whether it was Haruhi or, like any of the thing or K-On, like they had made a bunch of like really enjoyable shows, but none of them were my favorite. I just like really enjoyed what they were doing from an animation. Like I loved watching their shows way more. Like Haruhi was never one of my favorites. K-On never one of my like they were just things that I really enjoyed watching. Like, and I thought like they were, when we're talking about the craft of animation, they were the best.
Mm-hmm.
I love Disappearance. Actually, no, Disappearance is actually really objectively good. But
nice little slide in there. It was good.
So when Sound Euphonium was first announced, I was very excited immediately because I loved the character designs. I Free had just come out not too long ago, and I had been obsessed with Free. And like maybe once like NDAs are all over, like I'll come back on this podcast in 5 years and I'll tell you a super secret, or 10 years and tell you a super secret story about Free. That's very funny.
Yes.
But Free was like one of the first anime that Crunchyroll licensed outright, like instead of like, so there's some fun things going on.
Wow.
10 years.
Wow.
5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years. We'll hear.
Keep your job.
I have a very funny story about Free real quick.
Yes, please.
I am allowed
Tell me
to
about the Swimmy Boys.
Why is Free called Free Iwatobi Swim Club in America or outside of Japan?
I don't know.
Because Americans like long titles.
In Japan, it's just called Free. Why would it be called Free Iwatobi Swim Club here?
I don't know.
Because crunchyroll.com/free is how you get a free trial.
Wow. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Once you hear it, you're like, yeah. I mean, it makes complete sense.
That's crazy.
I was wondering why that name was so long. I was like, I feel like Free would have been like a pretty good title just by itself.
But now it's a really long link.
Again, well,
Wow.
it goes with the fact that like, like a lot of animes have long titles, and like those are like tend to be like those like silent hitters that like everyone just falls into. So I'm like, maybe that. But
I know we're starting to get to the age of like the title is like a paragraph. It's like my dog saw a flower and licked the wallpaper or something. Like
we have a new record.
What's
we
the
have
record?
a new record
of longest title.
Oh,
I don't know. Actually, I don't know if we've announced it yet, but we have a new record. And we're using it now because the previous record was World End. What will you do at the end of the world? Will you save us?
Yeah.
That was previously the longest title on Crunchyroll, and now we have a longer one. So
Wow.
Oh,
I like how
I'm
there's an
excited.
Olympics. Like my last name is really long, and I hope that I could be contended in or something like that. But so Sound Euphonium.
So Sound Euphonium was coming out. Thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate you. And we went on a couple tangents there. Sound Euphonium, I immediately was attracted to the character designs, was very excited, loved a lot of the cast and like the directors who are working on it. The two key core directors are like some of my favorite KyoAni directors, even to this day. And I played saxophone all throughout my youth.
Me too.
I was in the concert
Here it
band,
is.
symphonic band, all that stuff. And so that was what brought me in. That was what drew me in.
Mhm.
But certainly my nostalgic memories and experiences playing, like being in the competition and like struggling with how much I cared about this hobby of mine as like something I did like that my parents pushed me to do for college versus something I legitimately cared about because I wanted to be in the jazz band, but I wasn't good enough to be in the jazz band.
Oh
So
no.
I was stuck in the symphonic band.
Yep.
And so I just played jazz on my own and never practiced the like songs we were supposed to do for the concert stuff. And the alto sax in a symphonic band is actually in a fairly similar role to the UFO.
Oh,
Because it is not like a bass. You're not keeping the bass line. You are there to supplement the other instruments. You are there to make the sound
Hold it
ring
together.
truer for everyone else. And so Josh, you played the saxophone too?
I did. Alto sax.
Hell yeah. Do you still play?
No. I switched to choir.
Do you still play, Miles?
I like to. I don't play nearly as much as I would want. And the problem is if you don't play it a lot, you don't have the stamina
Yeah.
to play like meaningfully. I would love one of these days. I don't know. We're raising
know the
chickens
feeling.
now. I don't know.
You ever
I
watch
was French horn and upright bass, so I feel it.
Oh my goodness.
I feel like Miles, you just had an existential crisis. I
You're like,
don't
need the
know.
music,
I want
but
to play the
life is-
saxophone.
I don't know.
I
It's
don't.
strange.
I have 2
You ever-
kids. I'm an
ever
adult.
watch,
Your own sound euphonium will begin before long.
You ever
I got
watch,
in.
I was like, you ever watch Whiplash?
Oh
No, I can't.
I was-
I can't.
I was
My
gonna
wife
say.
told me I should never watch it.
It's like it's very. I think one it hits for me because like I'm a
Oh.
filmmaker, but then like I think for musicians, it's just like another level of like it's. I would say if Sound Euphonium like has a very positive ending, like Whiplash is very
Does
much
not.
Like, it's much more like, who are you? And it's like, oh god, like in a terrible way.
Makes you go fetal.
Yeah.
Just
I was in an
Anyways,
Uber ride before the pandemic for a half hour, and the dude asked me why my name is Miles, and we started talking about Miles Davis, and then we started talking about like he still plays the saxophone, and we were talking about playing the saxophone for like a half hour, and I was just sobbing by the last. Like, it was a really God. Anyway, so
Anime
that's
will
my
mess you up.
crisis. Sound Euphonium, then I watched it, and from the first episode, I said, this is one of the most perfect anime I've ever seen in my life. And
Wow.
the coolest thing about Sound Euphonium is there has never been a moment I have not felt that way. And so, like, when we were reaching out to y'all about, like, what to talk about, like, I gave a list of, like, I think 10 series, I think, that I would be willing to talk about. And I'm really happy you chose this one because of everything on Crunchyroll. This is probably the one. This and Shirobako are the two that mean the most to me. And as much as I love Shirobako, Sound Euphonium is objectively much better. Because Sound Euphonium is it is the perfect anime. It is and when I say the perfect anime, what I mean is the perfect visual medium, like audiovisual medium, like expression of audiovisual medium in 23-minute segments.
Yeah.
Like it is the characters are the most well-developed and real and meaningful characters I've seen in anything, in literally anything. And the struggles that Kumiko goes through are so profound. And Tom, I appreciate you stealing my thunder because what you said is just like a more succinct way of anything I could have said of just like, I want to improve. Like understanding Kumiko, watching Kumiko's journey of finding her passion for, or understanding her passions and understanding where those passions came from. And then her being the like black hole of drama within Kichioji, like, and seeing like understanding from her perspective, like, because like in some ways, like she's like Nick from The Great Gatsby, where it's not about her half the
Just
time.
a
It's about
passerby.
like, well, not even, but she's a little more than a passerby because she is such a perfect she's overly compassionate and overly friendly in a way that drives her crazy all the time. And as such an approachable like person for other people to project things onto, she
She's a
serves as like
wallflower listener.
the fulcrum of so many crazy things and so much other people's drama and their reasons for playing. And like, look, music is a very personal thing. It could have been about literally any topic. And if it was told by the same people in the same fashion, it would have been just as deep and meaningful of a story. And I think I would have liked it just as much. But it's not. It's about high school band.
So
and
it
it's
hits
about,
you even harder.
it
Yeah.
hits me even harder. And God, Sound Euphonium is the perfect anime, and it is why being able to interact with people and like develop a community around people who feel as passionately about this kind of thing as I do is why I love my job and what keeps me going no matter how hard any given week is. And I look to Kumiko as like she develops over the course of 2 seasons in a movie into a protagonist. She starts off as a Nick, and by then she's the Gatsby, and like that is exceptional. You talk about coming of age, but you do not. Most coming of age stories are about someone who is already the protagonist of their own life.
Yeah.
And for Kumiko to not be that way until you've already spent 10, 15 hours with her, but it feels so organic and perfect at the same time, is just so incredible. And this, I haven't even said anything about like the directing or like the music.
Oh my God.
Or how you can know, like when, like during the second season, when there's the oboe and the flute duet.
Oh yeah.
And they are telling each other through their music exactly how they feel to each other. Like, and you know everything about how they're feeling and how they think the other person is feeling.
And why
and
they
they're
play.
having and why they play. And they're having this conversation over just 6 minutes of no dialogue, but just the music. That is art.
Mm-hmm. No, and
That's-
I've said this a lot too, where like I think a lot of even with film and comic books, there's a lot of nuance and subtlety that is just bulldozed over that Sound Euphonium in its animation takes the time to tell those stories. And it's probably because of the animation studios, but it's like, this show is like almost like a masterclass of showing you like these are who the characters are without having to explain it. And I really take heart to those kind of things because I feel like us as humans, we evolved from, cave drawings and stuff like that. So it's like we were able to see, literature change and grow over time and visualizing and seeing patterns. And so seeing those things are appealing to our higher brain functions of being able to like, these are who these characters are, and these are the relationships that they built, and this is the emotion that they're conveying in a beautiful way too. You could do it and it'd be raw and dirty, but they do it in such finesse where it's like,
it's pretty.
I was watching it, and then like every day I was watching an episode, and I would tell my friends like, God, I hate how good looking the show is. My goodness. And there's like, what do you mean? I was like, it's just like the most beautiful show I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. It's like, it's just so beautiful.
It's like dreamy. I mean, even from the first episode, you start with the end.
Mm.
I mean, basically all of Sound Euphonium is like Kumiko's recollection of what happened up to that end point. And I feel like the way that they've done everything, as you were saying, like there's the music, we could talk about the direction, we could talk about the art, we could talk about but the things they put in between too. Like one of the things I was talking about earlier was Kumiko's older sister, like when they finally have that big discussion of like the way that was done was so good because like, Kumiko's older sister burns the soup to try and like amend this, riff with her parents, and she burns it. And then Kumiko's like, no, I'm just going to make dinner. You go take care of that pot. And in a way it was kind of like, I'm going to like go on and do the things you wish you could have done. You have to take all of the burnt past you have off of that old pot. And they even show you the inside of the pot at the end when she like, her last frustration, she gets off that like last bit of burnt stuff in the pot. And then it's kind of her like wiping away all of her past issues in a way of like coming to terms with it. And they show you the inside of the pot, and it's like, it's clean, but it's scratched up because of how much effort she had to put into getting it to be what she wanted it to be. And like all of that was like the story that was happening.
That's the post.
Like you could see this show and understand the story without hearing it. Like that's what it's all interwoven so well that it's very dreamlike. The art, the music, everything about it. So yeah. So that's why it's my favorite. So I can like it even though we just watched this. So go away, Tom.
I do want to ask a question though. And this is me, and I know it's not really like couth, but Miles, you say this is like, objectively and personally one of the greatest animes you've ever watched.
Yeah.
How much anime have you watched in your life? Hours.
So in 2010, my anime list, 2011 was last year I kept up my anime list, said I had watched 280 days of anime. And I've ramped up my anime since then.
So I want
so a lot. So it's like a lot.
Yeah,
I
well,
spent at least a year of my life watching anime, but probably significantly more than that.
Yeah,
and I think that
that
comes
sounds
to
right.
point because like I think best thing ever. You hear that from like reviewer aggregates and stuff like that, but it's like it
Yeah.
comes to a point where it's like when you hear someone that has watched considerably a much more anime than like an average viewer, that this show is so freaking good, and it's like we're not paid by them. I don't, at least I'm not. But it's like I don't like I don't have to, I'm not paid to talk about
Hashtag yet.
how great the show is, but the show is like so like, and I was telling this to everyone. I was like, I was so surprised at how much I was like, okay, cool, slice of life, whatever. And watching it, then I was like, oh shit.
No
Oh,
Tom.
oh shit.
No,
oh, they're gonna go with that. Oh, and then season 2 is like, why? Oh, I was like, it became like my top 5 like favorite anime of all time. I was like, I never expected, and then I haven't watched the movie yet. And so now I'm just like, I need to watch the movie. I need to see what happens in that second year. I need to see those arcs come to fruition. And I'm like, and so like, I was like, I need to see what happens to Reina. Anyways.
I mean, this for me, I'm one of the uncultured swines, just so you know.
He's our resident.
When we started this show, way back when the pyramids were still young, when we started this show, I pretty much had no anime experience. Like I had like the stereotypical where I had seen a couple of Ghibli films, and it's like,
Sure.
Yeah. So since then, we've done a few shows like Cowboy Bebop, My Hero Academia, but notice that those shows are dubbed. This was my first sub experience. And
Sub-dub war unites. Or
it was
ignites.
it was an interesting experience, and I'm not going to say one is better than the other. I can only talk about like the experience of it. I need to, of course, watch more subs. But it was an interesting. It was cool to have this be my first, and just like the nuances that go on into it. I mean, for me, it takes a lot of. I'm just going to say it takes a lot of balls for a show that is quote 23 minutes. Let's be real. It's probably 20 minutes when you've got credits and whatnot to spend. Oh, like I would say maybe like 10, maybe more minutes on a music piece. I mean, it's fascinating to me. I think that's wonderful. Like to be able to do that, to spend that much time on a music piece that, yeah, it has to do with what and I had a personal connection to it as well because I was in band. I'm a theater geek, so I changed to, and I did musicals, so I switched to choir. But yeah, I played alto sax for nerd. I played alto sax, and so there was there were some of these things that I was like, I remember when I got my instrument. I remember that. And you're like, when you clip it open and you're like, oh, it's so beautiful. Like a brand new instrument is so beautiful because it hasn't been tainted by years of spit and fingerprints. And but no, it's a fascinating. It was a wonderful show to like. My only other like slice of life was when we did Fruits Basket, and it was cool to get another like. I like that the shows that we have picked there's been quite the gamut. So it's always nice to watch another show like. You know what I mean? Like where it's like you're getting like, oh, I have one from each genre, but now it's like, oh, now I have a few from each genre where it's like, okay, cool. This is getting the gamut is kind of nice. And yeah,
it's a testament to like the other non-anime fluent audiences who are saying like, anime is not a genre, it's a medium. It's a full medium in itself and it should be respected as such because you don't just get one thing. It's like, it's not just anime. It's like anime is so much. It's so huge. It's its own universe in that sense, multiverse in that sense. But I did like what you're saying about how the show is so good and it could have been about anything. It could have been about like, like the chess team. It could have been about trivia and all that stuff. For me, and I talked to Kaylin and she like called it out like on a dime because I was in ROTC in high school. And so like that just tickled that experience of like competing, the drama between different grades of students and like trying to be really good. And then a conductor or our time was the army instructor who was just like busting balls and was just like, oh, are you trying? Get it together. And it's like, okay, I will. And it's like,
I'll be better.
So
like the reward for the potential of what you're working for and the passion. And that's like the enough justification to do what you're doing. You don't like being true to yourself. And like that's I think the big lesson that the older sister has to learn, that Kumiko ends up teaching Asuka, which was, or like trying to relate to Asuka, and like there's a lot.
Less suck, more good.
I was gonna say, I think since it is something that we can all kind of find ourselves in, was there a character, Miles, that you resonated with?
I mean, I already spoke to really feeling very close to Kumiko. I have always felt like I'm the protagonist of my own life. So, maybe that's a little contrary to what I said earlier, but I think one of the things I liked most about it is I was really looking at their experiences. And even though I had a lot to relate to their experiences, again, from like a storytelling perspective, and like to even like add context onto what I said earlier, like I've watched hundreds of days worth of anime. I've watched 93 or 4 of the AFI's top 100 films, and like this does a better job storytelling than than almost all of the best 100 films in American history, right? Like, and that's just, my personal perspective, but I am so smitten by and charmed by the cast of characters that I don't really like identify or see myself very much in any of them, other than like being able to relate broadly to Kumiko,
aspects and stuff,
experiences. And it's really less of and I actually like that it's less of a personal show, even though I like have that band experience. I think it almost is more profound because I've already experienced these things. I've already learned these lessons more or less. Or I'm watching it as I'm experiencing these things, in real time.
Yeah.
And so between all that, like it's less about that personal experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking up a little bit of like the audience zeitgeist of what they were talking about, of like, their experiences of it. And like, I have to say, like a lot of them kind of felt like how it sounded like you were going through with the anime club in Davis. A lot of people were saying like, yeah, I'm going to med school or I'm going to college, and seeing this show made me realize like Kumiko definitely has that I'm going to be someone else. And then that realization that like, no, I truly do love the euphonium. I truly do love this thing. I did this new hairstyle and now I'm not doing this hairstyle. I made new friends. And then it's like all these things where it's like the first season's like her rediscovery and then the challenge of her own potential. And then like really kind of like that. I mean, yeah, I lean back to the old sister because she is like the cautionary tale of like not being true to who you are, because that's definitely the road that a lot of people take, is that like in order to grow up and be an adult, like you just put away your passions and stuff like that.
Especially with the arts, like specifically, like I don't, anybody can probably attest to this of like, it's something that I grew up big time with was finding the fallback. You've got to, like, if you're in the arts, you always have to have that backup plan of like, oh, that's great that you like acting or music, but find a real thing. And sometimes that just takes over and you're unable to, there isn't that balance in your life of being able to focus on a passion or whatever. And it kind of eats at your soul. And you can really see that with the older sister, where it almost builds a resentment of the people that are participating in this thing that you want to, but even maybe towards yourself, like an anger towards yourself that is like, and then you just can't help but like blow up at people because you're just so angry at them and you, and it's just an emotional roller coaster.
Yes. So flip the script. Caitlin, who do you resonate with the most?
What is this live? Why are we targeting me? What's
Tell
happening?
me about your life.
I mean, I see aspects of myself in Kumiko and Taki and Reina, and a little bit of Shuichi too. Just
and Taki. Ooh. Can you tell us more about that?
All right. Oh, you know what? Maybe we're just going to take a little turn and ask Miles, what are some of your favorite parts from season 1 and 2?
I was about to say, like, at the end of what's it called, Our Promise, the movie, which is kind of like the next. It's essentially
the next part.
It's the next volume worth of content, so it's like another season essentially.
Mhm.
I cried like a baby at the ending of it. Like I cried so much at the ending of that movie because it's everything the first 2 seasons had been leading up to in such an unexpected but profound way that I'm getting choked up thinking about it.
Ooh.
I'm gonna watch that movie again tonight. Shout Factory just released a Blu-ray. Thanks to 11 Arts for bringing it over to the United States. But
Hey.
I think the maybe episode 8 or 9 of the first season where Kumiko goes up on the hilltop with Reina.
Lorena.
Mhm.
And Reina confronts Kumiko about her bullshit, and it's very fair and very justified.
Fair point.
Yeah, no, I love that scene because Reina is such an excellent character, and it seems like a Kumiko moment, but it really is the Reina moment that you should have known. Like it shouldn't be a surprise by that point in the show, but it is the crystallization of everything that she is in one scene, and it really emphasizes why Kumiko has such strong feelings towards her in a way that is like beautiful and meaningful and very profound for a high schooler.
Hmm.
Even though they don't understand their feelings necessarily, they represent them very clearly.
Accurately.
Nice.
Do you have any other parts that like stuck out to you, or like moments that, like, for me, the fireworks scene when Kumiko and Reina are like watching the fireworks together, and she's just like, I just wish I could hold on to it forever, because I think we all have those moments growing up where we're like, I know this moment isn't gonna last right now, but I like it. It could stay.
I feel it as a father, first time father. I feel it literally every day.
Oh.
Like I'm like, I want you to talk, but I don't want you to change at all. I want
Just
you to
stay.
Do not age.
Yeah, also I think that's a big topic in high school dramas too, because like, in an interpersonal level, like it is that, fantasy of holding on to your childhood, but also that, time is just pulling you towards adulthood. And so it's like and this is something that I've always loved about anime, especially anime that's like based in Japan, like in the show. I don't know if there's a lot, but summer and hearing cicadas is just like, oh man, like it makes you feel like, man, time is going to pass you by and there's nothing you could do about it. And the holding on to those memories, it's like, these are like the twilights of like your adolescence and your maturities level. So that feeling, I feel it.
I just have to do a really cool. You be the deciding factor of whether what I say is cool. No,
it's not.
One scene that I just loved is when they're getting their instruments, and is it Hazuki? Hazuki. She has her tuba.
Hazuki, yeah.
And
Hazuki,
she calls it tuba cabra. I just thought it was the greatest. I loved that it was called tuba cabra.
I was also very tickled by Midori having the bass. Sapphire.
No, it's Midori. She calls herself Midori.
I know. He's corrected all the time. But she plays upright bass, and that's what I played. So it was really like a little painful to see. Like they're making it so she's cute and small, but like the fingerboard, like that little crook is like right here for her. There's no way she could play a bass at that level. Her arm would be like
small and cute. Okay, give her a break.
Up there.
She got like a 45-degree angle with the floor.
Yeah, I mean, if she has it like all the way tilted down, and it like they seem to like fix it whenever she's actually playing, that it has like gone down. But I'm like,
maybe that's the magic of music.
You're right. It just shrinks basses when you play.
Imagination
works.
Use your imagination, Caitlin.
Anime.
This actually brings me to one last thing that I really, really want to emphasize that I love about the show. Like that's a particular moment, but not at the same time, which is it brings it back to why I think this is like a better form of visual storytelling. That like, this is why I'm an anime fan, is that Naoko Yamada is one of the directors on the show. She's not the main director, but she did a lot of my favorite. She did all my favorite episodes, I think, actually.
Nice.
And she also directed Liz and the Bluebird, which is like a spin-off movie, which is, again, cannot recommend highly enough. If you ask me if I like Liz and the Bluebird is a movie that requires you to watch on Euphonium to get the full story out of it, but it's like it's about Nozomi and oh my goodness,
is it Yorizuke?
The
oboist?
Oboist in the
yeah.
I'm probably saying her name wrong.
From the first 2 episodes of season 2.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm Mizore. Yeah.
I guess you don't really love the show then.
Mizore.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Wow.
No, it's
I've
fine.
watched anyway. Anyway, they it's about them and it's absolutely gorgeous and like just so different. But anyway, every moment like in the Naoko Yamada episode shows like why animation is such a great medium for storytelling. I just think like you could not physically put a camera at the angle and perspective, and even if you could, you would never think to do it. When you see Kumiko practicing her euphonium alone, you know, you just see her sitting down there, and that like image, that perspective is burned into my head. Like the way that the light moves, like, you know, I love a lot of French New Wave, like that. Some of my favorite cinema is like, you know, like Tarkovsky and Melville.
Some Godard.
I love Godard. Like, and Godard, like Yamada has that same level of detail where every image, every like pixel on the screen is exactly how she wanted it and speaking to something larger. And with animation, you actually have the power to do that all the time, and you don't have to spend 10 years in production to make, you know, something that ends up being mediocre, brother. Or what was that one? Childhood? I don't. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway. the Patricia Arquette movie that took 10 years to make. Anyway, it feels like
Boyhood
it has that level. Boyhood. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It has that level of detail and care without having to take 10 years and be a bad movie. And so it's not that.
That's a Richard Linklater.
But like, again, animation is so perfect for storytelling, even when it doesn't need to be animated. Like, there's nothing that needs to be animated here. It could, all these things are realistic, all these things are real, but it uses the medium of animation to tell a better story because it is so thoughtful about how everything moves, the characters, how the characters move, says way more than you could even get the best actors in the world to do. The camera angles say so much. You know, like there's a meme about like Yamada loves feet because a lot of her scenes are just like skirt down for the girls.
Oh yeah.
And that's a joke. That's a meme. Don't take too much.
It's not literal. It's not literal.
Those
it's not
scenes.
Tarantino. It's not Tarantino.
It is not asterisk.
Those scenes mean so much more because we are looking at it through the exact perspective that the director wants us to, and every director who touched this anime is a genius.
It's funny that you mentioned that because you know, being a filmmaker, I honestly think of like, why can't movie frames be this beautiful? And I literally look and I take stills sometimes and like I make that part of like my storyboarding process because I'm like, it should be that beautiful. Why can't we, you know, do these kind of shots that are like, some people call these cutaways, but I'm like, these are like the moments of like silence that like are really beautiful, you know, moments that like the characters can kind of just live in, and so does the audience. And it's funny that you mentioned the feet thing because like I think I'm at a really young rudimentary age. Like I did a lot of like walking shots, and it's just like from the foot down, and it's just like those perspectives of like the world is different. You know, the world is different now with these new steps that we're taking in life. But it was funny because I was like, man, I would totally love to have Miles do an anime by the numbers for the show, but you literally kind of just did that just now. So that's awesome.
Commenting on the foot thing, the one that I remembered that was like a very real moment to me was
Subway.
No. It was, they were on the bus. I think it was the Minami Middle School when they didn't win. And it was, they were talking about how they were going to do it next year. And she had her like legs all scrunched up under her and her shoes were off. And she was like having her feet up on the seat. And like, I've done that. Like whenever you're like in the car on the way back and you've had your shoes on for 100 years, so you take them off and you're like, for me, it was like a character thing. It wasn't just like a feet thing. It was like she had just been in these stuffy shoes that she never wears, so she took
It tells
them
the
off.
story in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everything feels intentional. I mean, there are always a couple moments that feel a little too extra, but at the same time, like being a middle school, high schooler is being really extra. No, it's being really extra.
I mean,
You got all these emotions you don't know what to do with, and you're like paying attention to things that you probably shouldn't be paying attention to. So I give it a little credence to be a little like, did you need to do that?
Yeah, and then being like
in high school, it's like, did you need to do that?
and
No.
being a teenager, you're like constantly like critiquing yourself and judging yourself, and like they talk about developing as a girl and to a woman.
The
but also,
boobs,
like,
I know, yes.
But also the point where like on the subway where like Kumiko had to like just like practice for hours and she's like tired, exhausted, it's nighttime, and then she like is like sitting in the subway, she like takes off her shoes for a quick second, and then Reina shows up and then she's like, oh god, and
I
like,
have to be proper again.
and it's like, yeah, it's like those moments of like true humanism that like bleed through the pages and bleed through the animation to like, yeah, I definitely felt like that.
And then you
before.
add
And it's
on,
like,
you add insult to injury of them being symphony players, where it's like there's music, there's no room for, especially at that level of like being, God, I can't speak. Going to competitions, like if you're a competition level, like there has to be like this nitpicking of every note you play.
Perfection.
And so when you're a musician, or whether as an artist, you're not just a perfectionist of your art, you're a perfectionist of yourself. And like you're just like nitpicking every note that is your life, what you wear, what you do, every action that you take. I mean, it's exhausting.
It's a lot.
But with that, let's maybe do some favorite characters.
Yeah, sure. We do some favorite characters and start rounding out the show.
Felt like we did that. But
We said like kind of related to, but not favorite characters.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite character other than Kumiko, Miles?
I mean, I honestly feel like, again, it's the whole ensemble. I like Kumiko the best, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I really respect and love all of them. I think Taki and Reina are some of the more interesting characters. Asuka is one of the most interesting characters.
Yes.
I both simultaneously love her and just like, I would be so frustrated with her in real life, but she's such a perfect character. Asuka's one of the best characters.
Asuka is my favorite character.
Oh, not even shocked.
She is so like, to me, it's like the thing is I love that she is able to look at situations, see the drama, and then be the mediator between the two. Like when we find out like why the flute or clarinet player won't be allowed back in for the oboe player, and I was like, wow, like that's such a diplomatic move, and it's like, don't say anything because I don't want anyone's feelings to be hurt. But then she turns around and public facing is just like, hey guys, it's gonna be all right. Let's just play, let's practice. And everything's like passions, like tell me about your stories, tell me about your problems, because she's deflecting her own problems. And there's like a beauty to that to me, because it's like everyone's going through something. But Asuka kind of has that wherewithal to kind of realize that like the best thing I could do for the group is to not make it about me and to make it about everyone else. So like I really enjoyed that. I don't know. It did a lot for me. So yeah.
Josh.
Yeah.
I want to give a quick shout out also to Haruka.
Yeah.
The in season 1, she's the president. She plays the baritone.
Oh yeah.
Why couldn't she be the president? Oh.
That she was the president.
No, yeah, but she says that to Asuka. She's like, why didn't you just be the president? Because I didn't want to. And you were the president because you were the one that decided to be it. And I was like, oh God. So that means something. That means like she's willing to be that role. And it's like, it's so good.
She is so counter to what you imagine would be the president of the club. And you can tell, you can see every little decision, or you only see that one decision really. You don't see other decisions she makes. but everything else you see of her tells the story of how that happened. And looking at Asuka and just seeing like the pain that she has to struggle with from the responsibility, the weight of that role that she is in no way equipped to take on. And then she, for her to be able to help turn the club around so meaningfully, so quickly, is very profound and incredible. And I'm inspired by her.
Yeah. She was.
I would actually second that, because I love that scene when there is that leadership of like, why aren't you? Like you already talked about it, Tom, but I just really love that, because there is and then kind of going on, and like at the end of the first season when she's about to give her semi speech, and Asuka is kind of gives her a wink of like, you can do this. But I just love the way that she takes on that role. But I also love Sapphire. I just like, she's just kind of kooky.
Midori.
She's cute.
She's cute. She's spunky, and she's got this giant instrument.
She's also kind of like child prodigy. So like you never hear her struggle. Like Kumiko struggles to like learn her parts, but you never hear her. So it's like she offers that wonderful kind of foil to Hazuki. Yeah, Hazuki, because she can't play, or she doesn't know how to play yet. And so it's like you have the differing levels of like someone's played for a long time, someone who's like just great at it, and then someone who like loves it but it's not good. So,
yeah.
Caitlin, did you say
Kumiko and Kazuki, like the Hattori? Yeah.
Okay, if we could do two, Reina's my second. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, surprise.
Reina, I mean, the one who's like, I'm going to go and reach for the stars because
play a trumpet on the mountain.
Yeah, because like no one else got there, and it's like it's not embarrassing to strive to be great, and even if you lose, like you at least lost by trying, and not because you doubted yourself the entire way through, thinking that it's okay to just be okay with not making it.
Yeah,
and so like that's the big lesson that she teaches Kumiko. So I loved her, and yeah, I don't know, black haired girls, I don't know. But, no, I think we could round out the episode. I do want to say, so obviously, Miles, you recommend this show to all anime lovers. What is a show that you can recommend to somebody that is brand new to anime?
Josh, I'm going to treat you as a proxy here. How would you feel if you had been recommended this like 2 years ago?
I don't know if I would. I don't think that I would at all enjoy it, to be perfectly honest. Like I think it's like after having some experience, like Tom and I joke because he's like, no, you've been given the cream of the crop. Like we're doing shows that are like My Hero Academia,
ones.
like these things that are the cream of the crop. You don't even know.
I love certain shows, but like he didn't get Shin-chan with like sketchy animation art style, but it's like it's in its own right. He didn't see where like the nuance of like we're seeing where Dragon Ball Super. It's like, oh, those key animation stills aren't great. Like this is like so beautiful.
And I'm only at the beginning, so I mean it's like it's one of those things that slice of life animes aren't quite yet my bag yet. Like I'm not like not yet, but it's we joke because I oftentimes if I don't like something, I'm not okay with just not liking it. I have to like waterboard myself with it to like either A, it forces me to like it, or B,
it's so violent.
I get it. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like it's just like I'm like, why do I not like this? Everybody else does, and I'm just like,
Dick Cheney loves you. So Miles, given that proxy, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, that kind of speaks to like I think the challenges I have with recommending Euphonium to anyone is that if you are unfamiliar with Japanese high school, like you've not watched other anime that have had that kind of setting before, there's just a steep cultural learning curve. And to me, it like a lot of anime fans fall into the trap of just not realizing how much they've learned, like how many of these, like how much they've internalized their understanding of a lot of these things. And so they will say, oh, it's great to start with. But at the same time, it's like you wouldn't recommend 8.5 to just someone who's starting to get into like, auteur film
No.
You just wouldn't do that. You'd start them off with The Shining or something. And in that same sense, like, well, maybe not The Shining. That's a bit traumatizing.
It's a lot. Potentially.
But like that is like it's like a step into the like, oh, this is just a horror film, but it's directed really, really well. And like has these things that kind of give you a little more to think about. And in that same sense, I had something and then it just went away.
Must have been a
Oh
lie.
my goodness.
No,
I mean,
just kidding.
Princess Mononoke, I hate to just jump to Ghibli, but I always feel like Princess Mononoke is a great jumping off point because it does not ignore any of the things that makes anime. Like Baccano is something where it's like there's a lot of anime-isms that are a little over the top. Baccano is one of my favorite series, but it's a little too much anime in some places for like someone's first like anime. Whereas
one of my
Princess
first.
Mononoke it's a good one, but it's like Isaac and Miria, like for example, can be just like a lot if you have never watched any anime, right? And a lot of the like tropes are just like, what are you doing?
What is happening?
Why is
why?
anime?
Anime powers.
And so like Princess Mononoke does not pretend it's not anime, like some of the anime that people recommend. Like you want people to get into, like people like anime because it's anime, not because it's not anime. So if you're gonna baby step them in, you have to go anime, but you can't go too far. And so something like almost any Ghibli film is good in that regard. Like Cowboy Bebop, of course, is a little actually not anime enough in some regards. So I actually don't like recommending it first thing because you can just be a Cowboy Bebop fan and that doesn't mean anything about whether or not you like anime. And so I tend to want to go a little deeper.
You throw them into the deep end, but not into the ocean.
Little Witch Academia.
Little Witch Academia is a very good one to start with. Absolutely.
There you go, Kayla.
I only recommend it because I'm in it.
There you go.
And I love it.
You're in it. Wow.
Yeah, I'm a voice actress. Surprise.
Yeah,
but,
I watched only the sub version. Sorry, Kayla. I'm kidding.
Oh, it's fine. No, I like things like that are a good entry point though, because it's like it's kind of like the storyline of Harry Potter. And that's familiar. Something that can be familiar from popular Western culture and be in something that's in anime as well kind of gives you that entry point. It's a completely different story.
Yeah, it's
and
like
has,
the
it has its
homogenized
own
version.
warmth and storyline and backstory and all of great characters.
That's why sometimes leading questions are always not leading questions, but just like setup questions where it's like, well, what do you like?
Probing
Kinda like,
questions.
Yeah, probing questions of like, oh, you like Harry Potter. Okay, then, well, you might like this.
Yeah.
If you like true crime stuff, Erased is like a perfect starter anime.
Oh, yes.
Because that is like very much true crime, but it's very anime.
Oh, it's
super
not too
anime, but it is decidedly anime.
I love
but
these
it rides that
measurements.
line.
Not too anime, but it is very anime.
But that is kind of the thing, though. You do have to ask those leading questions of like, what are you already interested in? How can I find an entry point for you? Because as you were saying, like anime is not just like one thing. It's a lot of things.
It's a buildup. There's not something, you don't just like something out of the get-go. There's something that informs that liking.
Yeah.
So there's there's a years of stacking of stuff of like of why you might like some baggage. You have baggage.
Well,
that
it's
informs
like
your liking of something.
It's like what Miles was saying was like, you know, like if you watch anime at a young age, like you take a lot for granted for like what you realize you've learned because of anime.
Exactly.
Like meeting up on rooftops where like there's a giant fence. Like, why is that a thing? And then it's like, why do people meet on rooftops? Why do they all have like white button-up shirts and then
why are they always riding trains? Why are
why are there so many power lines? Why are there cicadas? Why is it there's like a little
what are these bird sounds I've never heard before?
Why do all the levees look beautiful? It's like those kind of things. Like those are all parts. And it's like, why does food always look so good? You know?
Why do they walk everywhere?
It's those kind of things where I think you do take for granted. So like going in it as an adult, if you're brand new to anime, but if you're younger, it's kind of like it's very easy. It's like learning a language, I'm assuming. Yeah, very much like learning a language. 100. Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah,
I like how you just went very good, Tom.
Yeah, that was very good. It is
good
lame. It's like
observation,
Pat
Tom.
yourself on the
But
back
Thanks,
there.
Tom.
going back to like what Miles was saying, was like watch movies, but watch auteur films. It's like, oh, that's very different, So
Yeah. Well,
yes.
Miles, do you have anything that you would like to plug? Things that are coming up that you want everybody to know
That you
about?
can say that you won't get you fired.
You were Croy in Little
I
West Side Academy?
was.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness! I watched it all
Surprise.
dubbed. It was excellent.
Oh, yay.
That's the plug. You're Croy.
I'm Croy. Surprise.
Great performance.
Oh, thank
Follow me on Twitter. I'm real_kilometers. More importantly, follow Crunchyroll on every single platform you humanly can. It's
Okay.
CRUNCHYROLL. Crunchyroll. Watch anime. Share anime with your friends. Watch Barry on HBO Max.
Nice.
Crunchyroll Expo, a virtual Crunchyroll Expo is coming around this Labor Day weekend.
Oh.
Please check us out. We're going to be making announcements coming soon. So it's a virtual convention that promises to be above and beyond your wildest expectations.
Oh.
Wow.
So trying out new things. Very, very, very excited.
Awesome.
Maybe Nerd On will be hanging around.
Might be cool.
Awesome.
Would love to talk about that after this.
Thank you for taking the time too, Miles. Thank you for chatting with us about one of your favorite anime, if not your favorite anime.
Yeah.
Very happy to be here.
This is wonderful.
fun.
Wonderful. Everybody at home, thank you so much for tuning in, for listening. If you are new to Nerd On, please do check out our website, nerdon.tv. Stop by, rate and review us wherever you listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart. We are everywhere. So subscribe, listen, share us with your friends, your family, share it with everybody. That's how we...
And watch Barry on HBO Max.
Yes. Do consider joining the Nerd On Nation. It does help us to grow. It helps us to be the best that we can be. Check out that Discord. But yeah, that is everything. That has been the show. Thank you so much. We love you all. You know the drill. As always, Nerd On.
Nerd On.
Nerd On. I missed it. It's okay.
Ending broadcast.